So I was possessed by this idea for Stinger with the image of a bee crawling upside down out of a locker. And if you're familiar with like schoolroom lockers, there's usually like three slits at the top or bottom or both. And I guess they're air vents. But I just had this idea of this bee slowly crawling upside down. And I read in the fiction book, the textbook we've been reading, that to start with an idea and just draw from it. And so I was like, what is a bee going to be doing out in this locker? And I'm like, okay, well, he'll be part of a colony in a hive that's building in the locker. Is the hive going to be connected to a school? I thought to myself, of course, yes. But I had this kind of image of like more of a dreary setting and more dramatic and harsh, even, I guess. And I figured then an abandoned school would be good for that. And I wanted to include humans in the story to be referred to as giants. And so, what are humans going to be doing at an abandoned school? And I just had this idea of just pot growers using the abandoned building for uses in the growing of their marijuana. And so the setting unfolded really in that sense. I also just had these ideas of a kingdom and struggle and contest in war, and that the bees would be fighting against other bugs and insects within the school over just space, as well as the food that the potheads were just dropping on the ground consistently. And so I was just really built from there. At the same time, I'm reading this book called Jesus for President, and the authors are hoping to provoke political imagination for Jesus followers in the ways he might have meant it to be, compared to what a lot of militaristic, nationalistic things have become. And so one of the things that the authors of this book highlight and kind of give an overview of is pacifism, and the way that that can be deployed in violence and conflict, both on domestic and foreign soils. And so very challenged in that book, very challenged in that read, and it definitely provoked my political imagination, as the book wanted to do. And I just had this thought of that bee crawling out of the locker being a prince who was struggling with his militaristic, nationalistic kingdom and his father and the lead general, and conflicting there with them, and kind of wondering if there was a better way than to always be at war and committing violence against roaches and ants and spiders. And so what I was going for in this story, as things really came together, was to show the power of conversation with enemies, and to hopefully, if just in a small random midterm, excuse me, I'm so tired, fiction short story, that there might be better options than just being so nasty to people that we disagree with, and that there is a better way than just conflict and battle and disagreements and separations. I would also have to say, thinking about it now, like the current cultural moment we find ourselves in 2020, where we're at like civil war levels within our nation, definitely inspired this story. And just been exploring different routes and talking with different people as to what are some things that can unite us in this very divided time. Biggest concern with the story is the pace. I feel like it's a little bit too fast. I had so many ideas in my head that I felt like I could have wrote a novel. And I'm also concerned about the history that I tried to explain to set up the setting of what was going on within the zones and within the history of the bugs and the insects before Prince Jaeger really comes on the scene. And I devote about 3/4 of a page to that. But I just don't know if it's enough, and I almost feel it's a little bit cumbersome. And so We will see in the workshops if that is the case. I'm going to read to you guys a conversation that main bee that crawled out of the locker I was describing to you. His name's Jaeger. Jaeger's having a conversation with his buddy Kobe, and Jaeger's beginning to kind of just muse and question some things out loud. Jaeger's eyes squinted, revealing the beginnings of some premature wrinkles. Do you think roaches and wasps will ever live in peace again? Kobe's head tilted back at the off-topic question. It wasn't like Jaeger to ask probing questions. Brother, the thing is, peace is so gutsy, Kobe replied with a tone drowning in doubt. How do you mean? Jaeger inquired. Peace during any conflict, be it an argument with your lady, a cracked relationship with a friend, or this godforsaken war, is gutsy because it takes initiative. One side has to bend first and show open hands. Someone has to make the first move. That always assumes the risk of rejection, or worse yet, betrayal. Kobe replied as if he had thought about these notions long and hard. This kingdom is led by those who want this war. As if they had the choice, they would keep it going. General Watton is my father's head advisor. That wasp can't live a day without knowing he has advanced his cause over that of the roaches. Jaeger felt the relief in his body that comes when a deeply controversial opinion is brought to life in open air. The twisted geezer was born into war, Jaeger. He lost family, troops, and even his own eye to those roaches. Kobe rattled off, shifting his tone. How does this end then? They secure, develop, and deploy fireworks. We cut off travel routes, secretly assassinate leaders, secure and develop DEET. Their suicide bombers penetrate the hives. We kill POWs. This has to stop. Jaeger placed his front legs on the glass and dropped his shoulders. I hear you, but these hopes ain't gonna be something we see anytime soon. If you don't stay focused, you're gonna lose the respect of the leaders and your daddy. The giants are out of the room now. Why didn't they turn out the lights? The ceiling lights were left on. This was a major advantage to the wasps in the outpost because the roaches avoided light at all costs. I need to check if they left them on in rooms 1 through 3. Get your head on and get them out of these ideas, Jaeger. It will be your ruin. Jaeger shook off the mixed counsel from Kobe. Jaeger loved Kobe and thought him to be a brilliant wasp. That could have been a philosopher or perhaps a professor of sorts. If only he would be okay with flowing against public opinion. The creature was a slave to acceptance and favor amongst anyone he met.